I want to talk about stories. They're everywhere in movies, books, songs, and we tell them in everyday conversation, at the dinner table, on the phone, and inside our heads, where we both create stories and repeat ones we've heard. Now, maybe create seems like a strange verb because I think most of us believe that there's only one version of our life story that's true to the facts. And indeed, facts limit our stories. I can't tell you a true story about my life and say I grew up in Nepal, when in fact I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. But facts do not predestine your story. A story is more than facts. A story is an interpretation. It has meaning and direction. We select which facts are going to create the key thread of meaning for our lives, which facts are going to define us. And those facts do not have to be the events that happen the most often. They don't have to be the events that even seem the most dramatic at the time. They are simply the events that we choose to endow with the most meaning. And any life could be explained by a variety of stories. And the one you select makes a difference. My life, for example, could support some very different stories. As the child of an alcoholic mother, alcoholic father, alcoholic stepfather, growing up in a family filled with verbal and emotional abuse, and as the youngest, the target of preference for family rage, I could tell my life story as a tale of victimization, unfairness, relentless cruelty. But I could also tell my life story as the tale of hard work and perseverance. And I could also see my life as proof of the amazing, essential goodness of ordinary people. Friends and distant family, of course, but also of literal strangers who simply saw a chance to do something good and took it, and thereby changed my life. So, some examples. From age 9 all the way through the end of high school, I went to a local girls' school that my mother had also attended and where she had suffered greatly from feeling unpopular. Although we came from an academically rich family, we had neither the money nor the pedigree to be part of the social elite. But oh gosh, my mother wanted me to be popular with that crowd. However, when I was about 14 and a half, and I suddenly made connection with that in-group, I became successful competition. And overnight, my mother forbade me during the school year to have any contact with my classmates after school hours, or even with neighborhood friends. No overnights, no phone calls, no play dates, well, unless with one of the two nerdiest girls in the class, themselves social outcasts. And I wasn't allowed to have a job. I couldn't babysit. Was not allowed an allowance. Privileges reserved for my brother. So, basically, from about age 15, I was under house arrest. But my senior year, the 48 girls of my class decided that every Friday we would meet very early at a restaurant to share a pancake breakfast. What an opportunity for an isolated teenager. No way, I can't let you have the car a second day during the week. But a friend I didn't get to, wasn't allowed to see, but a friend offered to drive me. No, said my mother, I can't waste $2 letting you eat in some restaurant. No problem, I said, I don't like breakfast. I'm just there for the conversation. Nonsense, she said. No restaurant would ever allow you to sit and not eat. And I'm not going to waste $2 on you. So I told my friend. And unbeknownst to me, my friend called my mother and said, I'll pay. And so I went. My friend offered me this amazing gift of human connection, but she also offered me a story alternative to my mother's narrative. In my mother's story, I wasn't worth a $2 breakfast even once. But to my friend, for whom $2 represented a lot more money, I was worth that every week. Another example. When I was 8, my grandmother pulled me aside, having found me distraught over another encounter with my mother's rage. And she said to me, listen, you just have to hold on until you're 18 and you can get away to college. I said, we don't have money. I'm not going to be able to get away. And she said to me, listen carefully. You are very bright. If you work really, really hard, colleges will pay you to come study with them, and you'll be able to get as far away as you need. Do you understand what I'm saying? She was certainly affirming my value, but she was also giving me a key to my future. She was letting me know that all I had to do was work. I could make that choice, work hard, and I'd be okay. That story, that I could make conscious choices that would have an impact on my future, that story became my lifeline when I entered adolescence. So I'm 15 years old. I'm up in my room crying after another encounter with Mother. And suddenly I look up in the mirror and I think, I could make this stop. All I have to do is fight like she does, dirty and mean. And I know where her soft, emotional underbelly lies. But then I thought, yeah, and then I become the very thing I dislike. I win the battle, but I lose the war. And somehow at 15, I knew the war was for my character. And I also knew I could make a choice. And if I made a good choice, not an easy one, but a good one, there'd be people there to support that. So I'm 17, excited I'm going to be applying to college. But I quickly discover that my mother has picked out the 2 schools I'll be allowed to apply to, neither one of which interests me because I want to go to the Ivy League. No way, I'm not wasting $15 on some Ivy League application for you because you're too dumb to get in. And even if you got in, you're too dumb to get a scholarship. And even if you got one, you're definitely too dumb to get the grades needed to keep it. So I'm not going to waste the $15. However, a distant relative had been associated with Brown University, had gone there years previous, and just pestered my mother until finally she relented, and I was allowed to fill out a 3rd application. Months later, Brown University contacted my mother and told her that every year they offered 8 4-year, full-ride, unconditional scholarships to 8 young women, 1 per geographical region. And I was in the running for the Midwest Scholarship. All I had to do was go to a group interview weekend long in Providence. If my parents paid for that plane ticket, Brown would take care of the rest. My mother categorically refused. About a week later, Brown called back. We really like your daughter. We have an alumna in your area who could do a private interview. Would you be willing to drive 5 miles to this woman's house? So we get there, but it becomes quickly apparent that I will not be allowed to answer a question when my mother can do a much better job. So I shut up and I shut down. After a few minutes, the interviewer looks at my mother and says, you know, we're going to be quite a while here, and I would hate for you to be bored. I have a beautiful sunroom that looks out over the garden. I don't know if you brought anything to read, but I have a lot of good books. I'd be more than happy to lend you something. Nonsense, said my mother. I'll be fine right here. No, said the interviewer, and she stood up. You'll be better in the sunroom. When she returned without my mother, she immediately put me at ease. And before I knew, I was telling her how when I was 16, I'd invented this method of teaching myself a foreign language. And within 18 months, I was fluent in French. And what excitement it was to read Flaubert and Jean Giono in the original and understand it, and how I taught myself trigonometry because it wasn't offered at my school, and I loved numbers and the neat patterns I'd seen. And we talked about music, and I played the guitar for her. And we talked about literature and drama and opera and all the things that I had yet to discover, but that were calling to me. During my junior year at Brown, the dean, with whom I had become very good friends, told me that they had decided that if even only 10% of what this woman wrote about me was true, they definitely wanted me at Brown. I don't even remember her name. I never saw her again. But her kindness in being willing to do that interview, her deftness in neutralizing my mother, Brown's kindness in going the extra mile to make sure I got interviewed, these things changed my life. They got me to a place where I could grow and develop free from my mother's angry, critical, and competitive eye. So, what difference does a story make? I mean, all three of those stories are true. I did indeed grow up in a family marked by alcoholism, mental illness, violence, and abuse. But it is also true that I have been incredibly blessed by lots of people and their kindness. Many of them people I didn't really have any connection to at all. And it is equally true that I have been guided by the conviction that I could make conscious, reasoned choices to select things: a major, a job, a university, friends, life habits, things that would promote positive character growth. So, here's the difference. That story of abuse, I mean, it looks pretty consoling, right? It justifies me, accuses others. But it's really a story of powerlessness and hopelessness. It goes nowhere outside of that negative circle. And it breeds a sort of self-indulgent self-pity and bitterness and anger and a prickly distrust. Things well suited to shrink your heart and poison your character. But the story of the essential goodness of ordinary people, that's a story of miracle, and it fills your heart with a deep and abiding gratitude that creates a deep desire to pay that grace forward. And the story of hard work and perseverance, that's a story of human agency. It transforms you from object to subject, from thing to person. And it balances the story of miracle because it makes you an active participant in your own life, not just passively waiting for rescue. But the story of miracle, it balances the story of agency, because it reminds you that basically you do nothing alone. Taken together, those two stories, the story of miracle, the story of agency, they form a soil in which love, compassion, and generosity of heart can grow and can push you to reach out in love towards others. And as you do that, as you move beyond yourself in loving others, a second miracle happens. Your heart expands and heals. And you become more aware of the wonderful qualities of the people around you and of their human needs, because everybody needs a positive word, an affirmation of their best qualities, an encouragement in their struggles to grow, and a celebration of the small successes of their daily efforts. And everybody needs a listening ear and a compassionate heart. Because everybody has a story. And in every story there is a dark place of pain. And if you can move beyond that place in your own life without pretending it didn't happen, then you can offer others hope, understanding, peace. So, choose your story well. You don't have to live a negative story mapped out for you by somebody else. You don't have to live your parents' life if you don't want to. And if, in difficult, challenging times, some negative story continually reemerges, you can resist. Choose your story well. You can question whether the story you believe is positive, whether it's the only truth worth recognizing, whether it's even true at all. Don't let some negative story steal away your one wild and precious life. Choose your story well. Choose a good story, one that fits you, but one capable of promoting joy, faith, hope, love, perseverance, and gratitude. And provide your children, your spouse, your family, your friends, your acquaintances, the people you meet along your way. Provide them in what you say and what you do with the best possible true stories about them. It can change their life. It will definitely change yours. Thank you.